Halloween night. The one night we welcome strangers to our doors, smiling, pretending it's all in good fun. But sometimes, behind those masks, something real is hiding. Every year there are stories. People who never made it home. Kids who went missing between one house and the next. Families who opened the door to someone who wasn't looking for candy. We decorate our homes with fake blood and rubber skeletons. But the scariest part of Halloween isn't the costumes. It's that soft ding dong after midnight. You think it's just another trick or treater, but when you open the door, the air feels colder. The smile looks wrong, and by the time you realize it, the door is already open. Tonight, you'll hear three true stories. Real events that began with a knock and ended with a scream. Three reminders that sometimes the real monsters don't need to break in, they just need you to answer. Before we begin, take a breath, turn off the lights, make sure your doors are locked, and listen till the very end because these stories are not made up. They are drawn from real incidents, police files, and eyewitness accounts. If you enjoy true horror, subscribe for more. But remember, what you're about to hear might stay with you long after the video ends. Now, let's begin. It was late on Halloween night. The laughter outside had finally faded. The streets were empty, except for the sound of dry leaves brushing against the pavement. Most houses had turned off their porch lights hours ago, but mine was still on. I forgot to switch it off before heading upstairs. I was alone. My husband was away on a work trip, and I had the whole house to myself. The quiet felt heavier than usual. I made some tea, turned on a small lamp, and sat by the window scrolling through my phone. Then the doorbell rang. I froze. It was almost 10:30. Trick-or-treating had ended long ago. For a second I thought maybe it was one of the neighbors or some teenagers pulling a prank. I waited hoping they would go away. But the bell rang again, slower this time. I walked toward the door quietly, my heart beating harder with every step. Through the peephole, I saw someone standing there, tall, still, wearing a white plastic mask, the kind you find in a dollar store, blank and emotionless. They weren't holding a candy bag. They weren't saying trick or treat. They were just standing there, staring. Something about it made my stomach twist. The way they didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even tilt their head, just stood under the flickering porch light, breathing. I whispered to myself, "Don't open it." I turned away, slowly walking back toward the living room. But then came a soft tap on the door. Not knocking, just a light brushing sound, like fingertips dragging across the wood. I grabbed my phone and called the police non-emergency line. They told me to stay calm, lock the doors, and wait inside. I hung up, switched off the lamp, and stood still. My breath felt too loud. The tapping stopped. When I finally looked out again through the peephole, the porch was empty. No one there. I exhaled in relief, my body trembling. Maybe it really was a prank. But then I saw something that turned my blood cold. The porch light was still flickering. Only now, the white mask was lying right under it. Someone had taken it off. Before I could even react, a sound came from upstairs. A soft creak like someone stepping on the floorboards. I stopped breathing. Every instinct told me I was not alone anymore. I looked up the staircase, my eyes locked on the shadow stretching across the hallway. I grabbed a kitchen knife and slowly stepped back. The air felt colder. My hands were shaking. Then another creak, closer this time. I whispered, "Who's there?" Silence. Then came the sound of slow, steady footsteps descending the stairs, each one heavier than the last. I backed into the kitchen corner, knife in hand, eyes fixed on the stairs. The steps stopped. For a few seconds, I thought whoever it was could hear my heart pounding. Then came the faintest sound, a long, slow breath. It was coming from right behind the wall, inches away from where I stood. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. My phone was still in the living room, too far to reach. Then I saw flashing blue lights through the window. The police. The sound of sirens filled the air. The footsteps turned, fast now, moving toward the front of the house. The door slammed. By the time I reached it, the porch was empty again. The officers searched every room, every corner. There were no signs of forced entry, no broken windows, nothing taken. The only thing left behind was that mask, lying on the welcome mat, staring up at me. They said maybe I forgot to lock the door. Maybe it was just a Halloween prank that got too far. But I know what I heard. 2 days later, the police came back. A house across the street had been broken into. The woman who lived there, gone, vanished without a trace. The only thing the neighbors noticed was that her porch light had been left on all night. When they found it the next morning, there was a white mask hanging from her door handle. Since that night, I can't sleep with the lights off. I can't listen to the sound of footsteps without feeling like someone's behind me. And every year on Halloween, when I see porch lights still glowing after midnight, I wonder if they just forgot to turn them off. Or, or if they are waiting for someone to come home. I grew up in a small town where everyone knew everyone. Halloween was always a big deal there. The houses lined with orange lights, kids running around in homemade costumes, parents chatting in driveways. It felt safe, comfortable, the kind of place where nothing bad ever happened. That year was different. I was 12, old enough to go trick or treating with my friends without parents. We carried pillowcases instead of candy buckets, bragging about how much we'd collect before the night was over. There was this one house we always looked forward to, the one everyone called Mr. Lyle's place. Mr. Lyle was an old man who lived alone at the end of the street. Every Halloween, he made homemade treats: chocolate fudge, caramel apples, popcorn balls. Parents loved him because he was kind. Kids loved him because his candy tasted better than anything from the store. That night, his porch light was on as usual. But when we got there, something felt strange. There were no decorations, no music, no laughter. Just the light, shining too bright against the fog. He opened the door before we could even knock. His face was pale, his smile a little too wide. He said, "Well, if it isn't my favorite trick-or-treaters." He handed each of us a piece of fudge, wrapped in wax paper. His hands were shaking. I didn't notice then, but now I remember the smell. Sweet, but sour underneath, like something was wrong with it. We thanked him and left. My friends tore into the candy right away, but I didn't. My mom always told me not to eat anything homemade until she checked it, so I stuffed mine back in my bag. A few houses later, my friend Ethan said his stomach hurt. He laughed it off, thinking it was just too much candy. But within minutes, he started to stumble. His face went pale, and he dropped his bag on the sidewalk. We called for help. His parents came running. By the time the ambulance arrived, Ethan wasn't breathing. They said it was an allergic reaction at first, but Ethan didn't have allergies. The police started going door to door, asking about the candy. That's when they got to Mr. Lyle's house. He wasn't there. The door was open, the porch light still on. Inside, the kitchen was spotless, too spotless, like it had just been scrubbed clean. On the counter, they found a pot, a spoon, and a stack of wax papers identical to the ones he'd given us. The pot still smelled like fudge, but there was something else mixed in, something chemical. The police later confirmed it was laced with poison. They searched for Mr. Lyle for 3 days. He didn't show up for work, didn't call anyone. Then, on the fourth day, they found his truck abandoned near the edge of the woods. Inside was a small tin box. In it were folded notes written in shaky handwriting, each one addressed to a child in the neighborhood. Mine was there too. It said, "You are always polite. I'm sorry." The police eventually discovered what happened. Mr. Lyle's son had died the year before. He'd been arrested for child neglect and took his own life after being released. The old man had been spiraling ever since. The candy wasn't meant for random kids. It was meant for revenge. He thought if other parents felt his pain, they'd understand his loss. The fudge was his message. My friend Ethan was the only one who ate it that night. The rest of us were lucky. Weeks later, I saw Mr. Lyle's face on the news. They found him deep in the woods, about 10 miles from town. He'd been dead for days, sitting beneath a tree with an empty candy tin beside him. After that, Halloween in our town was never the same. Parents burned homemade candy. The porch lights were dimmer. The laughter was quieter. But every year, someone still leaves a single piece of fudge on Ethan's old doorstep, wrapped in the same wax paper. No one knows who does it. The police say it's probably just a cruel prank, but deep down, I think it's something else. Maybe guilt never really dies. I still live in that town. I've got kids of my own now. And every Halloween when they come home with candy, I check every single piece. Every wrapper, every label, every smell. Sometimes I think I catch a whiff of that same sweet, sour scent. And I remember that night, the look on Mr. Lyle's face, the way his hands trembled, the way his porch light burned through the fog. They call it nostalgia. I call it a warning. Because where I come from, we learned something the hard way. Not every monster wears a mask. Some wear an apron and a smile. And sometimes, the sweetest thing you taste on Halloween is the last thing you ever eat. It had been 6 months since my wife Claire passed away. The house still smelled like her perfume sometimes, lavender and dust. The kind of scent that clings to curtains long after the person's gone. I had stopped answering the door after dark. Grief does that to you. Makes the world outside feel like a threat. But that Halloween night, I made an exception. The neighborhood kids had always loved our place. Claire used to decorate the porch with fake cobwebs, pumpkins, even a little speaker that played ghost sounds. She said it made the kids laugh. This year, I didn't have the heart for any of that. Still, I left the porch light on. Maybe out of habit, maybe out of guilt. The trick-or-treaters came and went. Tiny monsters, princesses, superheroes. By 9:30, it had stopped. Silence settled over the street. Just the occasional sound of wind pushing leaves across the driveway. I turned off the light, locked the door, and went upstairs. I was sitting in bed reading when it happened. Knock, knock. 2 slow, deliberate taps. I froze, listening. Then again, knock, knock. I checked the clock. It was 10:02. Too late for kids, too late for anyone. I walked downstairs, every step heavier than the last. Through the peephole, I saw nothing. No one on the porch, no shadow, no movement. Probably just the wind, I muttered to myself. But the wind doesn't knock twice. I started to walk away when I heard it again. Knock, knock. But this time, there was a voice, soft, familiar. Open the door, honey. My heart stopped. It was her voice, Claire's. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Every part of me screamed that it wasn't real. It couldn't be. She was gone. I'd watched them lower her into the ground myself. Please, the voice said again, calm, gentle, exactly how she used to sound when she'd forgotten her keys. Let me in. It's cold. My throat tightened. I whispered her name, barely audible. Claire? Yes. The voice was clearer now, right on the other side of the door. I could almost picture her, standing there in her favorite sweater, smiling, shivering a little. I reached for the handle, my hand trembling. Then I stopped. Something was wrong. The voice was perfect, too perfect. No echo, no breath between words, no emotion behind the tone. Just exact. That's when I noticed the smell. Not her perfume this time. Something damp. Something like soil after rain. I stepped back. The voice called again, this time a little sharper. Let me in. It's freezing out here. I didn't answer. The knocking grew harder. 3 times now, louder each time. Then came the whisper. Still her voice, but lower, almost hissing. You promised you'd never leave me alone. I felt tears running down my face. I whispered, You're not her. Silence. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then I heard something scraping against the wood, like fingernails dragging slowly down the door. The scraping stopped near the lock. I saw the deadbolt tremble, then twist halfway. I stepped back further, my legs shaking so hard I could barely stand. Every instinct told me to run, to hide, to do anything but stay there. But my body wouldn't move. Then the voice returned. This time, it wasn't calm or gentle. It was broken, distorted, as if two people were speaking over each other. Why did you bury me? Why did you lock me out? I screamed, You're not her. She's gone. The moment I said it, the knocking stopped. The air in the house grew colder, sharp enough to bite. The lights flickered once, twice, then went out completely. In the dark, I could still hear the faint sound of breathing. Not outside, inside, behind me. I turned slowly. Nothing there. But the smell of soil was stronger now, overpowering. I backed into the living room, fumbling for my phone. The flashlight flickered on, trembling in my hand. The beam caught something near the wall, a trail of wet footprints. They led from the front door to the center of the room, and then they stopped. I wanted to run. I really did. But I couldn't look away. Because just above the footprints, etched into the wall, were words written in something dark. Thank you for letting me in. The phone slipped from my hand. I ran out of the house barefoot, screaming for help. When the police arrived, they searched every inch of the place. No one there, no footprints, no writing on the wall. Just the open front door swinging slowly in the wind. They said I'd imagined it. Grief, exhaustion, trauma, they called it many things. But they didn't smell what I smelled. They didn't hear her voice. A week later, I packed up and left. I haven't been back since. Last Halloween, my new neighbor called me. He said he moved into my old house. He laughed when he told me something strange. He said every night around 10, someone knocks twice on his door, and when he looks through the peephole, no one's there. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. He said sometimes, when the house is quiet, he hears a woman's voice whisper from the other side. It's cold out here. Can I come in? We grow up believing Halloween is harmless, a night for costumes, candy, and laughter. But the truth is, horror doesn't wait for a full moon or a haunted house. It hides in ordinary places: a porch light, a piece of candy, a familiar voice calling from the other side of the door. Every story tonight began with something simple, something safe, something we've all done without thinking. And maybe that's what makes it terrifying. We trust the light that guides us home. We trust the treats given by smiling neighbors. We trust the sound of someone we once loved. But trust is how the darkness gets in. Halloween isn't about ghosts or monsters. It's about the reminder that fear doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it looks like kindness. Sometimes it sounds like someone you miss. And sometimes it knocks twice before you realize you've already opened the door. So when the streets fall silent tonight and the laughter fades into the wind, listen closely, because every knock, every whisper, every flicker of light in the dark is just waiting for someone brave enough to answer. Sleep well, and remember, on Halloween night, some doors are better left closed.